All right, today we're jumping into one of the most foundational stories ever told. It's a story about a world that's fundamentally broken, and a single, ancient promise that one day someone would come to make it all whole again.
You know, the entire narrative really hangs on this one massive question. And we're not just talking about fixing a few problems in society. We're talking about fixing creation itself when something has gone terribly, terribly wrong right at its very core. This is the question that drives everything we're about to unpack.
So to even begin to understand the solution, you've got to understand this title, Messiah. It literally means the anointed one, but it's not just one job. Think of it as a three-part role for fixing a broken world. You've got the prophet, who reveals God's will, the priest, who makes things right between humanity and God, and the king, who brings ultimate justice. You're going to want to remember those three roles because they are absolutely crucial.
Okay, let's dive in. To really get why a Messiah is even needed, we have to rewind all the way to the beginning, to the original catastrophe that shattered the world in the first place.
So the way the story goes, this wasn't just one bad choice, it was a catastrophic domino effect. It all starts with a single act of disobedience, and boom, right away, that choice enslaves humanity to sin. But it doesn't stop there. That internal corruption then bursts outward. The human body itself is cursed, driven by desires it can't control. Then, the very land humanity was supposed to nurture is cursed. And finally, the ultimate blow. Dominion over the whole earth is lost, and handed over to a new ruler, Satan.
And this is where a huge cosmic problem gets deeply personal. This quote really hits home, doesn't it? Humanity, represented by Adam, is now just powerless, desperate. Life itself becomes a daily struggle for mere survival in a world that's suddenly become hostile.
But right there, in that moment of what seems like total despair, a single glimmer of hope gets dropped into this new, broken reality. A promise is made.
And this is the crucial point. God makes a divine promise that someone is coming, specifically an offspring of the woman. And his mission? It's crystal clear. He will come to crush the enemy, Satan, and restore every single thing that was lost in the fall. This is the very first whisper of the coming Messiah.
Now, you can't make a promise like that and expect it to go unanswered, right? It doesn't just give hope to humanity, it immediately sets the stage for a cosmic war. Satan hears this promise not just as a threat, but as a challenge, and maybe, just maybe, an opportunity.
And what's so fascinating here is the strategy that unfolds. Satan's plan is basically a cosmic coup. See, he thinks that if he can control humanity and make sure God's laws are constantly broken, he can somehow invalidate God's authority and actually dethrone him. And with God out of the picture, he can rule everything. There's just one tiny problem, one variable that threatens his whole plan, that promised offspring.
And this is it. This is the heart of the entire conflict. The whole cosmic drama, playing out over thousands of years, is boiled down to these two opposing missions. On one side, you have God's plan. The offspring is coming to deliver a crushing blow. And on the other, Satan's countermove. I have to destroy that offspring, whatever it takes. The battle lines for the fate of all creation have been drawn.
So let's fast forward to the turning point and see how this ancient conflict starts to finally get resolved. Because after generations of waiting, the promised one, well, he arrives. So this new figure shows up, and he's called the last Adam, for a very good reason. He's the perfect counterpoint to the first. Every one of his actions is a direct reversal. Where the first Adam disobeyed, the last Adam perfectly obeyed. That's him fulfilling the prophet role by living out God's will. Where the first failed, the last succeeded. And the result? A complete flip. Instead of bringing a curse on the world, he brings redemption.
So how in the world does he pull off this redemption? Well, he fulfills that second role, the priest, by becoming the sacrifice himself. His life of perfect obedience leads to his death, which acts as the atonement, the payment needed to square the debt for that first act of disobedience that started this whole mess.
In that ultimate act, it's not just an ending, it's the foundation for a brand new beginning. His sacrifice is said to seal a new covenant. You can think of it like a new, unbreakable contract between God and humanity, one that's guaranteed not by flimsy human promises, but by his own incredible sacrifice.
So what's the immediate result of this new contract? The curse. The one that began way back in the garden, the one that corrupted everything, is finally and totally broken. Its power is just shattered.
But this brings up a huge question. Who could possibly pay a price that high? I mean, the debt was for all of creation. The narrative is very clear on this point.
The price was so immense, only one being in the entire universe could pay it: God himself. And this story, the Messiah, this last Adam, is actually God in human form, coming down to personally satisfy the demands of both perfect justice and perfect love.
So this one incredible act, this ultimate sacrifice, it sets off the grand finale. It triggers the complete restoration of everything that was lost. It's creation's great reversal. And here is the ultimate irony of the whole story. When Satan orchestrated the death of the Messiah, he thought he'd finally won. He thought it was checkmate. But in reality, it was his single greatest mistake. By killing the embodiment of perfect good, he accidentally exposed the true, ugly nature of evil to the entire cosmos, and in doing so, sealed his own judgment. He basically justified his own final defeat.
And look at how this reversal plays out. It's a perfect one-to-one fix. Adam's enslavement to sin is reversed by humanity's freedom from sin. The cursed land that yields thorns is reversed by a restored Eden. The reign of death over humanity is reversed by the conquest of death itself. And Satan's temporary rule over the earth, it's replaced by the Messiah's rightful, eternal rule. And that fulfills his third and final role as king. Every single consequence of the fall is systematically and completely undone.
So the main thing to take away from all this is that the entire story finds its perfect resolution. That original promise is fulfilled. Humanity is free. The land is restored. Death is conquered. And here's the kicker. Creation isn't just reset back to the beginning. It's brought to its final intended completion.
And that brings us to the end of our story. But it leaves us with one last really provocative thought. With the promise fulfilled, the enemy defeated, and creation not just restored but actually completed, what happens next?